Good afternoon, and welcome to this special edition of TCAM Thursdays, coming to you from the Kansas African American Museum, located at 601 North Water in Wichita, Kansas. We are talking today with Dr. Michelle Vann, and she's going to give us some enlightenment on how to deal with stress and maintain holiday health.
Thank you, Dr. Reeves. As you can see, my shirt says that I'm a hope dealer. And so that today I just want to talk to you a little bit about hope and what does that look like as we get into the holidays, as we progress in the holidays. 38%, according to American Psychological Association, 38% of people surveyed said their stress increased during the holiday season, which can lead to physical illness, depression, anxiety, and substance misuse. Some of the reasons why they said that they had issues were there was a lack of time, there was financial pressure, gift giving, and family gatherings. Lord,
It's a lot, isn't it?
that's a lot. But that's what we're dealing with.
I hear you, most definitely.
Yeah.
And then, we have some special people, like, this is November that we're
Mhm.
premiering. So we have Thanksgiving and Christmas and so many other holidays, Kwanzaa all coming up. But also, I know some people who have birthdays, like
Yeah.
nationally, Shirley Chisholm
Right.
and Gordon Parks. They have birthdays on November
Mhm.
the 30th. But then in my family, my father's birthday is the perfect week before Christmas. And I know the stress for him, he said growing up, was the fact that my birthday was a week before Christmas.
Right.
I either got a Christmas gift or a birthday gift,
Right.
but how do people deal with that?
My son's is Christmas Eve.
Oh my
So
goodness.
my grandfather his birthday was the day after Christmas and he got married the day before Christmas, so he said that it was just 3 days of holiday, so they
Mm-hmm.
just did whatever. And I think it's hard. I think we also just came out of Veterans Day.
Mm-hmm.
And so as we go into the holidays and we really begin to think about all of the things that happened in this time period, it can be very stressful. I think one of the things that we have to really do is we have to decide what's important to us.
Right.
We can't do everything.
Mm-hmm.
We would love to be able to buy all the gifts in the world. We'd love to be able to cook the fabulous dinner. We'd love to be able to do all of those things. But I think we have to be very realistic and decide what is best for our mental health and where we are right now.
Okay, so what are some of the guidelines that we need to use to decide that?
So I would think that as we begin to figure out if it's stressing you out,
Mm-hmm.
it's probably not good.
Right.
Okay. So when we think about gift giving, it's not your birthday. It's technically, if we want to go on the Christmas thing, then, if we're saying it's Jesus' birthday, then why am I giving you a gift on somebody else's birthday?
Right.
Right. And
Right.
so I think we've made the holidays very commercialized. We've decided that these are the things that we need to do, but according to whom?
Mm-hmm.
We've allowed the community, we've allowed other people, we've allowed commercialism to decide what we should or shouldn't do, when in reality, we have to figure out what works for us. We
Mm-hmm.
shouldn't be so in debt for Christmas that we're paying it off next Christmas.
Right.
Okay. So, and I don't know about you, but I remember giving my kids gifts and they didn't even know where they were 2 weeks after Christmas. Right?
Yeah, that happens.
Or they played with the boxes.
They love the boxes better than they did what was in them. You're
Right.
right.
And so I spent all of my time, all of my money buying these things when in reality, if we're truly honest, most of us buy whatever it is we want to buy, when we want to buy it, how we want to buy it.
Mm-hmm.
And Christmas shouldn't necessarily be that time when we do all of that.
Right. Right. But there's so much pressure because I know, even, I don't know if you've noticed, but this last year or so, and especially this year,
Mhm.
even Black Friday started in October.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, not even the day after Thanksgiving,
Absolutely.
but there were Black Fridays in October.
Absolutely. I totally agree
So
with you.
there's pressure everywhere.
But it's pressure only if you allow it to be.
Mm-hmm.
So at what point do you decide? I remember my kids in high school telling me, Mom, you don't need to do that.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, why you don't need to put up your Christmas tree. You don't need to, none of that, because we don't care. Buy us stuff when we want the stuff. We don't. Christmas is not about that.
Right.
Now, don't get me wrong. I put up a Christmas tree because I like a Christmas tree. I put up a Christmas tree because those lights and all of that stuff
Yeah.
just are really soothing at this time of year. But I think you have to look at what is your family value?
Right.
What do you value in your family? Do you value quality time? Do you put so much pressure and so much value on gifts that you don't spend time with each other?
Right.
That you don't take the time to really get to enjoy your family? We have these ideologies of what we think are supposed to happen at Thanksgiving. Do we have to have turkey? Do we have to have, 50 sides?
Right.
Somebody somewhere told us that that's what needed to happen, and we bought into it.
Yeah, and
But
I've even heard
pizza
that there
eats
were.
just good,
That's right.
right?
Most definitely tacos.
Absolutely. And so what do we so when it comes down to a feast or
Hmm.
a time of our family coming together, our
Right.
family being able to spend time and to just have that day when we're off and we can watch football or we can do whatever we want. We can have a family game night. Do I need to do all of these things? Not necessarily.
Right.
And so again, it becomes, do you choose to succumb to the pressure, or do you choose to say, you know what, this is what I want to do?
Hmm.
This is what we're going to do. We don't have big, we usually have random things at Christmas. We may have a seafood boil, or we may have, uh, Alfredo or something. We don't always have a, quote unquote traditional kind of meal.
Okay.
And so
Now,
I
what
think it's
caused you to start doing that, though?
because we just decided it was dumb to keep doing the same thing over and over again,
Hmm.
expecting a different result. I mean, isn't that insanity?
That's the definition. So
Right.
I hear.
So we just decided, why? Why are we doing this?
Hmm.
I mean, like at the end of the day, are there some, police coming around to check us and see if I had, 15 courses for dinner? No.
Right.
What do we want? What do we want to eat? So we just talk about it. Hey, what do we want this year? Doesn't have to be anything. Doesn't have to be anything that anybody decided for us. We just can decide what we want.
Well, I'm gonna vote for nachos. Okay.
Yeah. That hey, I mean, nachos are great.
Yes, they are.
And so when we think about that, when we think about how do I, that just took a whole lot of pressure off. Because
Hmm.
if I can do nachos and my friends are coming over or my family is coming over or whoever I decide to spend, because remember that we don't have to spend any time with anyone that we choose not to.
Hmm.
These are all things that we decide. We have to decide whether or not it is for our best mental health space to
That's
be with
right.
certain people at the holidays.
Right.
And so when I choose to be with the family that I choose to be with, whether they're biological family or whether they're people I've just chosen to be my family,
Yes.
I take the pressure off when I say, you know what? Just bring some chips, bring some dip, bring some bring some drinks.
Right. Bring your
No
favorite
pressure.
game. Right. We're
Bring your
doing the
favorite
game
game.
night. Yeah.
Let's play games. Let's just,
Hmm.
it's
Yeah.
all good.
I think that's probably one of the reasons why we have these other activities like the ugly sweater parties, because
Yeah.
people said, let's blow this stress out and do something that you don't have to be so worried about perfection and, just have fun.
Yeah. And I think the thing about it is holidays can be very stressful, but again, it's if you choose to allow them to be.
That's right.
Take some time. If and I'm never going to tell you not to buy gifts for people,
Hmm.
but don't go so out of your way and get yourself in a financial situation where you can't pay your bills. Or as a teacher for a long time, we got paid on the last working day of the month. Well, we didn't
Right.
get paid again until the last working day of
The
January, so that was a
following
really
month.
long time
That's
from the
right.
from the day before Christmas break all the way until the end of January. So we had to be very cautious about what we did and how we did that.
Hmm.
It kind of changed now, but don't put yourself in a situation where in January you're having to beg and borrow for what? Your
Because of
kid is
all
gonna
that gift giving.
whether the tennis shoes are $120 or whether they're $25, they're still gonna cover your child's feet. They're still gonna make their feet warm.
Hmm.
That's all that matters.
Yes.
We can't get caught up in the commercialism of it.
I hear you. That is so wonderful advice to share. I guess really what you're saying is it is in our own hands how we handle it.
Absolutely.
It's our own hands, our own head.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I mean, because who are you comparing to? Who, if I have, if I have a meal and I have, 20 sides, who's going to see it?
Hmm.
I mean, yes, I could put it on Facebook, but at the end of the day, as adults, why are we comparing?
Right.
So at the end of the day, if you and I
Hmm.
don't live in the same house, what you did and what I did don't have anything to do with each other,
Right.
except for the fact that in my mind, I've decided that I need to outdo you.
Yes. But see now, but I think that sometimes it's not necessarily so much about that because then there's other people who, when you go out, like I know in my family, it's the idea is that we all come home and get together.
Hmm.
And like you said, I never understood that part because they always talked about there's always that certain uncle or that certain cousin that they're like, oh, well, he's coming, so gotta worry and gotta watch out and that kind of. We never had that issue, but I guess the other part of it is we just really have tons of food.
Yeah.
But then part of it, it's not a stress out situation for
Yeah.
us. It's traditional food that we've had before. It's something
Right.
that we normally have. I know I remember hearing the story about how this one family always had a Thanksgiving turkey,
Hmm.
but it was always a one-legged turkey. And they like the first thing they did when they bought the turkey is they cut the leg off and then they would cook the turkey. And it was like one day one of the kids said, "So why do we do that?" And they had been doing it so long that they had forgotten why, that they had to ask what I think a great grandma,
Hmm.
why do we do that? And he said, well, here's why we do that. It was because when we first had Thanksgiving and we had a turkey, the pot that we cooked it in
Didn't
did
fit.
not fit the entire turkey, and you had to cut the leg off in order to do it. So
Mhm.
like, see, you're doing stuff you don't even know why you're doing it.
Right. And I think these are the times when we really have to begin to look at what are our traditions.
Mm-hmm.
So what are the things that we do and why do we do them? Are they effective? Do they still have practicality in
Mm-hmm.
today's time? Because yeah, I'm cutting off the turkey leg, but I don't need to cut off the turkey leg because my oven will fit it.
That's right.
And so, do we understand why we're doing what we're doing? Do
Mm-hmm.
we Are we in tune with who we are and where we are in our families, in our culture, in our spaces? What are we doing and how do we do that and why are we doing it?
Mm-hmm.
If it doesn't make sense, stop.
Stop. Definitely stop. And stop and think about why you're doing it and maybe come up with some things that you really want to do
Mhm.
versus we're just doing it because it's what we always did. If
Yeah.
that's the reason why, then maybe it's time to do something different,
Yeah.
huh?
And I would say that, when we think about mental health and we think about holidays, you said that, there's always that uncle or always that
Mm-hmm.
aunt, there's always that person. I think one of the things we also have to be very cognizant of in the holidays is that sometimes people will indulge,
There you go.
whether it's in food, whether it's in alcohol, whether it's in drugs, any of those things. And so I think those are the other things that we have to be conscientious of.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm not feeling well, if my mental health is not stable, using other substances to try to self medicate won't make it better.
Right.
It really will just cause other problems. I mean, we've all watched Cops before,
Mm-hmm.
but most of the people that are on there because they were drinking, they were drugging, and they were doing something, and it allowed them in that inebriated state to do something or to have a situation that was exacerbated,
Right.
that didn't have to go that way, that didn't have to be that way. And so when we come to those times where we're saying, that aunt or that uncle, generally they're the way they are because of a substance abuse.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we think about the holidays, again, Veterans Day just happened. We know that there are people that have PTSD. We know that there are a lot of people, COVID happened.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people's holidays are going to be different because Nana isn't here anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Papa's not here anymore. So how do we process through that without drinking, without drugging? We've really got to have those times where we can come together, where we can talk, where we can share, where we can say, you know what? I'm not okay.
Most
I'm not
definitely.
okay that I for us, our family, we really had to do traditions very different. Our mom died in December
Mhm.
a few years ago. And then a few years later, our dad died on Christmas night.
Mm.
And then we had another family member that died in between those two.
Mhm.
And so it's been very different. But what we had to do was sit down and have a conversation about what do we do? So when our dad died that next year, that next Christmas, I asked my sister, hey, what is it that you want to do?
Mhm.
She's like, I don't want to do Christmas. I want to put up a Christmas tree. And she's the Christmas tree queen.
Oh.
I don't want to put up a Christmas tree. I don't want to put up decorations. I don't want to do any of that. Let's just do something later on. That's okay.
It
It's
is.
okay,
Mhm.
but we have to communicate those things.
Right.
We have to just say, I'm not okay. I don't feel well. I've got some kind of feelings going on, and I may not even be able to describe them. I may
Mhm.
not even be able to put my finger on why I don't feel so good, what is actually going on, whether it's in my mind or whether it's in my body. I may not even actually be able to say it, but I know that I'm not okay.
Mhm.
And I need to be able to express that to my family, to the people that I choose to be with, and know that traditions may look very different.
Mhm.
Know that I may not even want to do holiday. And if that's the case, it's okay.
It is. Most definitely. So now, what if maybe perhaps instead of doing the holiday, you want to do, or even as you do the holiday, you want to do something to remember the people that that you lost, maybe.
Absolutely. I think that's beautiful too.
Mhm.
So if all of our family is together and we just say, you know what, everybody bring your favorite memory.
Mhm.
Let's just talk. Let's just lift them up. I mean, I
Mhm.
think that when we think about we're in the African American Museum.
Mhm.
One of the things that we understand about African American culture is that we have a very oral history.
Most
And
definitely.
so how do we make sure that the next generation can know um a lot of times we lose things orally.
Mhm.
So how can we bring a picture? So how can we maybe pull out old picture books, or how maybe we pull out scrapbooking sorts of things and we all make a picture, or we all make something. We think about growing up, they were sometimes done in quilts,
Mhm.
and quilts represented the things of our family. But maybe it's a scrapbook, maybe it is a quilt, maybe it's just something that we put together. My cousin does these great quilts where she'll go and find pictures, and she gets them put on cloth,
Mhm.
and then she puts together these beautiful quilts for every family. So you get to
So you got a
your
memory quilt,
matriarchs
huh?
and patriarchs.
Mhm.
And so I think it's just, sometimes we have to think outside of the box.
Mhm.
While we're all together, what are we going to do?
Yeah, and I know another one of those traditions would be, I know pictures.
Hmm.
You take the pictures. I know back in the good old days when we had movie cameras. You remember we used to get together and show,
And show videos. Yeah.
put the videos up, or
Yeah.
even nowadays we make our own
Right.
videos. We even tie the pictures together into a video.
Right.
So, and then of course, what is it? Throwback Thursdays, what we often have, where you
Mhm.
see the old pictures from back in the day,
Right.
and remember, and like you said, share those stories about people.
Hmm.
I mean, what holiday have you ever celebrated where you didn't get together and you talked about the old days or the
Right.
people who aren't there? Just remembering. Hmm.
And you bring up all of those stories.
Hmm.
Now, don't get me wrong, that sometimes when we bring up stories, it also brings up feelings.
Hmm.
And so we have to be ready for that. We have to be ready that when we start to tell that story, that somebody may get choked up,
Hmm.
that when we start to tell that story, that somebody may get triggered.
Right.
And we have to be ready to deal with that, knowing that somebody may be a little more raw in one or two spots than somebody else might be.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that makes totally good sense.
Yeah. And I think the other thing that we have to, be conscientious of in this particular season is that we have less light.
Hmm.
And seasonal disorder is very real, and it's a very
Yes.
real thing. And I think sometimes we kind of blow that off.
Hmm.
And I know for me, for a long time, I couldn't figure out why I couldn't get anything done, but I was always trying to get home before it got dark. Well, heck, it was dark at 5 o'clock.
Right.
And So that was a real thing. And then I realized that I was in a building, in a space that there was no light. I was leaving to go to work when it was dark. I was in a
Leaving to
space
work,
all day that was
dark.
artificial light.
Hmm.
And then I would come home and it would be dark. And so that does things with our physiological balance. And so I think, sometimes we discount that, but it is very imperative, especially in the holidays, especially through the holidays. If you can get outside as much as you can. We've got a few more warm days. Get
Hmm.
outside as much as you can. Walk on your block, sit on your porch, open your shades, open your blinds, get the sunlight in. You need it as much as possible. One of the things we understand about psychology is that as we begin to have that light, it does things to our memory, it does
Hmm.
things to our spirit. And so we want to make sure that we're getting those lights open, we're
So
getting that light in.
it does the good thing that the light lightens your spirit and your
Absolutely.
memory. That's right. Because I, you won't get an argument from me. I have seen family members who suffer from
Mhm.
that seasonal affected disorder, and
Yeah.
that, like you said, the what makes the difference is getting in the light.
Hmm.
Even I've even heard that if you get really bright fluorescent lights
Hmm.
that kind of mimic outdoor
Hmm.
light, that helps a lot too. But from what November to March, they have a difficult
And I would
time.
really even say it starts earlier than that. When it was an issue for me, it
Mhm.
probably started at the end of September, and
Mhm.
it could go to the end of March,
Because you
sometimes
remember
February.
when, probably then that would, because you remember they changed the daylight
Hmm.
savings times. It used to be at the 1st of October
Hmm.
is when they would change it over. Now it's November,
Yeah.
so that's probably part of it.
And I think sometimes people are, don't really know what's going on. I'm
Mhm.
just tired. I just feel really draggy. But part of that is because we're not getting the vitamins. And the other part that, as we look at it, is, as melanated people, we tend to be vitamin D deficient.
Right.
And so vitamin D and vitamin K are some of the things that we pull from the sun.
Mhm.
And, so when we don't have that, we also have a lack in our body. And
Mhm.
so it's really important to make sure that we're getting some multivitamins, that we're getting some vitamin D, some vitamin K, that we're making sure that we're supplementing our body. Also, as we start to think about not being able to get out, not being able to maybe be as mobile as possible,
Mhm.
how do we just do a little activity while we're at the sink? We're washing dishes and maybe we're, kind of doing some steps. The great part about having family is
Mhm.
turn on some music.
That's right.
Go and dance, have a dance party. That's the great part about having your family, is we can come in, we can turn on some music, we can swing, we can dance, and we get some activity, we have some fun. There's nothing wrong with it to just have some fun.
And 9 times out of 10, there's somebody in our family who always walks around with the speaker
Yeah,
and ready to turn on the party.
yeah, yeah,
I know we have that in our family for sure.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Get it moving, keep it moving, get that vitamin D and that vitamin K.
Yeah.
And when you can, get it from the sun, get out there. I think, what is it, 15 minutes a day, at least on your hands and face,
Mhm.
goes a long way towards getting what you need. And I know even dealing with COVID these days,
Yeah,
that vitamin D is important.
absolutely.
Vitamin D and zinc, right?
Yeah,
So, yeah.
yeah.
So
Yeah, so
it,
we just wanna make sure that, we're doing all of the things that we can to keep our bodies healthy,
mhm.
keep our minds healthy, reading, just getting things that are stimulating our brain so that, we don't get into those places of depression, we don't get into those places where we're, hitting those valleys.
Now, what happens if perchance you happen to fall into that place? How
There
can we get out of it?
Well, so I think there's several things.
Mhm.
One, we have to look at who do I have in my circle that
Mhm.
I can talk to? Because circles are great. There's a
Mhm.
reason why we have, girlfriends,
That's right.
or guy friends, or however you want to put it. There's a reason why we have that circle. So if my circle can help me, then
Mhm.
that's the first place to start.
Mhm.
But maybe I'm talking to my circle, but they just
They're too busy
can't
and they
help.
can't keep up with
Yeah,
you.
they might be
Yeah.
busy. They
Mhm.
might be dealing with their own families. Holidays are busy times.
Mhm.
So that's not working. Um, maybe then I go to my physician and say,
Mhm.
hey, feeling a little funky. What can we do? There are a lot of over the counter things that can be prescribed to you that are not going to be habit forming, but are not prescribed drugs.
Mhm.
Um, and there, depending on your doctor, some doctors are more holistic than others.
Mhm.
Um, you might seek a therapist, you might seek a coach. I am not a therapist, but I use therapeutic practices. And so there's coaches that are out there, there are therapists that are out there, there are licensed social workers that are out there. So there's lots of resources
Mhm.
of places and people that can help you. I will be doing some workshops during the holiday to just kind of be able to help people process through some of those things. Again, many of the things that are going on within us, we have the answers. We
Mhm.
just need to be able to have a forum to be able to bring those answers up.
Right. And then I understand too that sometimes the thing that gets us down too is we think too much in the past.
Oh, yeah.
And that if we're thinking about things in the past that bring us down, that maybe we need to put those away and live to the look to the moment
Mhm.
and live in the moment, and maybe that'll help some too.
Yeah, and I mean, again, but those are things that we have to process.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think a lot of times we like to put things kind of like at Christmas. We like to put them in a box, and we like to put a pretty bow on it, and we set them on the shelf, but we don't ever deal with them.
Mm-hmm.
And just like the Jack in the Box, what we don't deal with will pop out. And it'll
Okay.
pop out at the most inopportune times.
All
So
right.
we can't just stuff it into the box and assume that just because we say go away, it's going to go away. We have to process it. We have to deal with it. And then once it's dealt with, then we have to continue to do the things that we need to do to maintain that freedom.
Okay. And that usually includes like not once you've dealt with it, let it go and move on,
Yeah.
right? Because like I said,
Yeah.
what is it? Bring it to the throne
And leave
and
it there.
leave it. Walk away and know that it's taken care of,
Right.
right? Okay. So, all right. Any other suggestions for
Well,
us?
I think that, our spiritual practices are definitely something that we need to look at.
Mm-hmm.
Do I have a spiritual practice? Do I pray? Do I meditate? Do I, do I have a place of worship? I think all of those things are important.
Mm-hmm.
We know that doctors have said people that have faith heal faster.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's mentally, spiritually, physically. When our minds, body, and spirit are in alignment. Now, that doesn't mean that we're all balanced, because
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe that balance is a real thing. I think there's an alignment piece.
Okay.
So when those things are aligned, then we can move forward. So do I pray? Do I seek whatever my higher power is? I could choose to call him Jesus, but
Mm-hmm.
whatever you assume that your higher power is. As you begin to pray, as you begin to seek God, as you begin to meditate, as you begin to exercise, as you begin to do all of those things that make your body and spirit line up,
Mm-hmm.
as you eat well.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Because one of the things that we do in the holidays, we like to eat a lot of sugar. One of the things we know statistically is that cancer survives on sugar.
Mm-hmm.
So the more sugar we're eating, the worse our bodies are going to feel. So sometimes when we're starting to feel bad, it's because we've consumed too much sugar.
Mm-hmm.
I love sugar. Sugar loves me. But I have to know when to say
No.
enough,
Mm-hmm.
because that sometimes is why we're feeling bad. We don't have enough of the good stuff in us. So, don't, while we love to cook those greens and we love for them to be all, filled, let's look at what we can do and make some better alternative decisions in what we're doing. Maybe we don't put the pork in there. Maybe we put a smoked turkey neck in there. Maybe we're not cooking with as much lard or fat, or we're not frying everything. We're
Mm-hmm.
baking some things. We're choosing some better. We're choosing salmon versus catfish, or salmon versus something else.
Perch, why?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
how can we put in some fish versus a pork, or a heavy beef, or
Mm-hmm.
how can we, even if we're going to use beef, how do we use a grass fed beef, which may be a little more expensive, but in the long run going to process faster? How
Mhm.
do we maybe not cook all of the nutrients out of our greens and out of our vegetables?
A
If the
nice
water
colorful raw salad.
Right. Well, if the water is green, then that's where all the nutrients is.
Mhm.
Old people used to call it pot liquor. Well, the reason why they called it because that's
Where
where
the
all the
good stuff
nutrients
was.
was. The stuff you ate really didn't have any nutrients. It was all in the water. So if
Mhm.
you pour your water out and your water has color, that's where the nutrients went. So
Mhm.
how can you, if you do that? So say I'm cooking corn or I'm cooking something, and I notice that the water has a color to it, then how do I take that and use it in something else? So how do I use that water to
And your
now make us
stuffing.
to now make a soup,
Mhm.
or to take that turkey carcass and put it in there? Now I'm boiling my soup and I still have the nutrients in there. So it's
Right.
really rethinking how we're doing some of the things that we're doing.
And one of those wonderful inventions, the air fryer.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you
So I
can
mean,
actually
how do
have
we do
fried
that?
food without fried pain.
Yeah. And then if say I'm a person that, maybe there's only two of us.
Mhm.
Maybe I'm not buying a whole turkey. I'm just buying some turkey legs, or I'm buying some turkey thighs, and I'm just going to do them in a different way. Maybe I
Mhm.
put those in the air fryer, or I throw those on the grill. And so it's looking at how do I do things a little bit differently so that I increase my health.
Mhm. That sounds wonderful. Yes, indeed. So, and another thing too is we want to stay hydrated as
Yeah,
well, because I mean, with all the different holiday drinks that come out around these days, definitely want to remember good old fashioned water.
absolutely. Absolutely. And limit our alcohol
Mm-hmm.
consumption. Making sure that while no one would ever tell you that you can't have a glass of wine, or you can't, something like that. But I would just say be very conscientious that it's those things dehydrate you. So
Yes.
alcohol will dehydrate you. So make sure that, as you're looking at what drink you choose, yes, have that water. Yes, have, those things that are hydrating you. I won't ever tell you that you can't have that, an alcoholic beverage, but I would say be very conscious of what your limit is. Be very conscious going in that, I am not going to get drunk, because
Mm-hmm.
that again takes us into a whole nother level in which we've got,
You become
I
the
already got some
the aunt or
feelings.
uncle that everybody's worried about coming to the event in the first place.
Absolutely. I got some feelings, you got some feelings, now they about to blow up. So
Mm-hmm.
just keep that on the back burner.
Awesome. So we've got some pretty good ideas about what it is we need to be doing, and we're hoping that in these holiday season that we all will do that. Now, I understand you said you're having some specials
I
this
will.
holiday season.
Yeah. I'll
So
be
you
having some things coming up. So they'll just go to my website.
okay?
Mhm.
And your website is
Vantastic Solutions, VANNTASTIC
Mm.
solutions.com.
All right, fantasticsolutions.com. We will have that on the screen. And again, we want to thank you for hanging out with us today on TCAM Thursdays, your midday cultural break.